Hey there. Welcome to the Screen Lawyer Podcast. On this week's episode, I get a chance to sit down with my friend, my client, and my favorite YouTuber, Jaime French, who's going to take us behind the scenes. We're here in her studio, which is also really cool. And we're going to see a little bit about how the content gets made, the struggles, the challenges, the business, and everything that goes into putting content on a screen. Join us. It's going to be cool. Hey there. Welcome to the Screen Lawyer Podcast. I'm Pete Salsich, the Screen Lawyer. And today I'm joined by Jaime French.
Hello.
Jaime, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And well, actually, I shouldn't say welcome. You've welcomed me. We're sitting here in your studio, which is super cool. This is our very first Screen Lawyer on the Road podcast. So maybe this is a trend. If you're out there and you want me to come to your studio, all expenses, we can work out a deal.
We started a trend.
That's right. So, Jaime, tell us about Jaime French. Tell us about the Jaime French empire. How did it get started?
Well, I started off, I was a hairstylist and makeup artist for 10 years, and I really wanted to do YouTube. I spent a lot of time consuming other people's content.
Right.
And I actually went to high school with a girl who got really big on YouTube, and it became her career. She moved to Los Angeles. She was the first person that made me realize you could make it a job.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, how could I do YouTube? I didn't really have the confidence at the time to just make videos about nothing. I felt like I needed, to have a skill or something of value. So I started making beauty content. And I realized over time, I kind of had a bit of a thing for comedic timing, and I really liked making the videos not just about makeup, but funny.
Right.
But I was really struggling to grow because the beauty market is so overly saturated. So as time went on, I realized that my only videos that were doing really well were ones that were funny, like makeup, but also funny.
Right.
And it began a slow transition into comedy, which I realized I liked way more. And eventually I think in 2019, I quit my job as a stylist and decided to do YouTube full time, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So you were, I didn't realize it because among the first videos of yours that I saw were some of your very, very funny makeup videos. But I didn't realize that was, and I guess when watching it now, I think about it, you must have known what you were doing because makeup, it was really cool. But I didn't know that that's where the background was.
It was kind of like, to me, I was a mediocre makeup artist. I didn't ever feel fully like I knew exactly what I was doing, and I felt much more confident with comedy. Right.
So you can, a little bit of making fun of yourself while doing, but also having the skills to do it. So do you remember what your first YouTube video was that you put out there under your own name?
Yes, it's the most heinous thing you'll ever see. It was a makeup tutorial, and I had like a gold sparkly background, and I did the really cringy thing all the beauty YouTubers did in the beginning, back in like 2014, where at the beginning of the video you would like pose with your makeup. I could probably send you a screen recording. And it was just a tutorial, and I did a voiceover. So I didn't speak when I did the makeup, and I went through and did a voiceover later. And I think every 2 to 5 seconds, I was making these horrible noises. I just didn't know how to be on camera at the time.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. And I don't really know how to be on camera either, but one of the things I've learned in this process is that you say a lot more than you realize. And try not to, but it is what it is.
I say like.
Yeah. Well, that's a generational thing. I remember asking my children, "Hey, what's it like?" I didn't ask you what it's like. What is it? What's like? No. Anyway. But take us forward from there, right? So you do this first one. You realize that you're, making these, sounds all the time. And so what changed? How did you stick with it? Because I would imagine a lot of people maybe think I could do this, and then they get started. And then the first time you watch yourself, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can learn just by hindsight, just by being on the other side and looking at yourself, editing the footage. That was really how I learned, was my own, just the editing process. I would get the footage in there and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize the camera looked like that, or I didn't realize this angle, or a lot of times my camera will go in and out of focus. You know, the autofocus was on. I didn't know any of that was happening. So you learn over time what you need, like a monitor, you need good lighting, you need good audio, etc. And you get better and better, but I don't think anybody can really know until they start. Like, you have to do it wrong, it seems, before you can be a professional at it.
I would, certainly, yeah. and hopefully you don't have to do it wrong for years and years and years before you get it right, because obviously you've evolved quite a bit over that time. So let's talk about your YouTube channel. So you really have a primary channel, and then you have like series. Can you lay out kind of how you built that? And we want to make sure everybody can find you, so we'll make certain of that. But tell us a little bit how that was built, and then, because then you've also expanded, you're on other platforms as well. So let's walk us through that process.
Well, in the beginning, I knew, just based on what I saw and like research I did, that to be successful on social media, the more platforms that you post to, the more likely you are to be successful. Because like a big way I grew my channel in the beginning was directing my Facebook audience to my YouTube audience. And every time I post a new video, I make sure I tell my Instagram viewers, because people will find you. Some people might only find me on TikTok and won't even know I do YouTube.
Right.
So I cross promote like crazy. So that's kind of why I do all the platforms. Also, it's fun. Sometimes it's more fun to make a short vertical Instagram or a TikTok and not have to think much.
Right.
You know, and as opposed to the long form. And then on my channel, I have in the past tried to create certain series. I don't know if that's
series. I know.
Certain series, but I'm kind of the queen of over-promising and under-delivering in that area. It's so hard to keep commitments. Like, if I say, oh, this series is going to happen every week at this time, I mean, you saw the technical difficulties we had today. Something goes wrong, and I can't keep the commitment. So for now, I have shelved all my series, and I'm just doing general comedy and commentary.
Got it. And so if this week's comedy and commentary happens to be a movie review, then it happens to be a movie review. But it's not, okay, it's Thursday, so we do another movie review.
No, it's never been. We've tried really hard to stick to a schedule, but every project is different.
Yeah. You
don't know how long the editing will take, and you don't know what's going to go wrong. I mean, there's been days where he spent half the day on the phone with Apple support because Final Cut stopped working. Or yesterday he had an issue for probably an hour. The computer wouldn't recognize the memory card. So there's just no way of predicting.
Right.
The people who are able to do it really regimented, I envy them. I think the viewer really likes that. They either have like a massive team, or the production level is a little lower, where they're less concerned about all the editing, and they can just talk to the camera.
It's a little more raw.
Yeah. I think they're more skilled, actually, than I am.
Well, maybe skilled in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, not necessarily quantitatively more, but a different set of skill sets, or a different comfort level with this, or what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Because when I watch yours, I don't mean to say that they look edited. Of course they're edited. Yeah. People know that. But what I mean is they're really well edited, right? And I know that's not easy. When I work for production companies, and I was in-house in production companies, and I've been on sets, it's very clear nobody wants me helping with the creative process. They don't want me saying, oh, that cut, actually, camera would be better. That's not me at all. But I've watched it enough to know and to be able to sort of see, and when somebody's doing something you can't see with it, and all of a sudden it comes together, like, and they had seen it in their own mind right before the editing. So that is really impressive. You must see that, as it comes together. Or does it happen organically?
There's times, like, I write my scripts, and I will write little notes in bold for them as editors. Like, I'll say zoom in right here, or add this clip, or so there are some things that come to me ahead of time, but much of it is once I sit down and look at it, I'm like, oh, this looks like it needs this, or this looks like it needs this. And there are times where I've gone back and watched my own content and thought it was way too much. But you get when you're sitting there looking at the computer screen day after day, year after year, it's like, I keep thinking it's dull and boring. So I'm like, add more. So I like having editors because a different perspective can help me realize sometimes I'm over editing.
Interesting. So not necessarily over content, just over editing. Let it flow, let it roll, let a few mistakes in or whatever.
Yeah, like I have this thing where I think I have to zoom in and scale the camera up constantly because it feels so flat without it. Right. And then I realize watching some of them back, I'm like, I'm getting dizzy, So yeah. So I think editors need people to help edit, to balance out stuff like that.
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like the two different sides of your brain. And you think of, famous directors that always worked with the same DP and the same editor because they do read each other's minds a little bit, or they can see, but they also bring a different perspective and they trust each other.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, sometimes difficult to do.
Yeah, you got to find the right people. And that's why I really wanted, a lot of people hire editors remotely, but I wanted us all to be in the same vicinity so that we could talk and, we pass hard drives around or I'll come look over their shoulder or vice versa. Right. They've taught me how to do stuff, I'll be like, how'd you put my face in a circle, And it's they, had the time that I didn't have to look it up.
Right. Yeah, and also like these days, there's something new that's literally while we're sitting here talking, there's 3 new software apps, there's 3 new things that are coming online that'll let you do this with graphics or let you do that or different things. Yeah.
It's never ending.
I can imagine. So speaking of never ending, how do you choose your content? Like how do you try to not get stale? You mentioned earlier sort of that the makeup tutorials or even the makeup humor, it's sort of ran its course. And maybe you'll bring something back at something, but you sort of exhausted it, right? and maybe the moment in time where everybody thought those were hilarious has also passed.
Yeah. When TikTok came around, it got so even more overly saturated than it was. And the attention spans got shorter because people could swipe. So beauty, for now, I don't think it's died. I think it's at a lull. But now it's quite easy to find content that I've switched to commentary. The process of landing on commentary took forever. I had to learn what my strong suit was. But now it's quite easy. If it's a movie review, there's endless movies. And so as long as I find one that fits my criteria, that is like an easy go-to. When I started running into issues with copyright claims and stuff, I had to think, okay, I can't just do movie reviews. But thankfully, there's always something to talk about. I really like talking about new trends on TikTok, and there's a new one every day.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. Some of your most recent ones that I see is this new TikTok trend is
weird
or funny or crazy or wrong or stupid or whatever. Right. And then you go into it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird to say, but I like to make fun of stuff.
Yeah.
Not nasty or anything.
No, and that's an important part. I mean, isn't that, you just said something that's real important to you, right? You have a very strong set of rules about what you say and what you don't say and how you use language, right? Yeah. I think that one of the words that you hear all the time in social media and YouTube in particular is you've got to be authentic. You are who you are, and you do and you show up every day as Jaime French. The people that are expecting to see you that day on their screen don't want to be like, oh, wait a second, what happened to her? Yeah, I like her the way she is.
Yeah, you can't really change much of yourself at all on social media. No. If you do, some of your audience will go and new ones will come, but most people, to me, are, you evolve a little bit with getting more comfortable, but most creators I watch are the same they were a few years ago.
Sure. and the beauty of YouTube, I think, in a way, is that, the success of the channel doesn't depend on millions of viewers sitting down on a Thursday night or whatever, right? It's you have a certain population, you have a big following, but that big following is still small to a network. Yeah. Or a studio, but it's really significant. But those are really and they find you at 2 a.m. and 9 a.m. or whatever when they are interested in it.
All hours of the day. Yeah. You can pull up your YouTube analytics and it'll tell you how many people watched which videos in the last 60 minutes. And I mean, sometimes it'll be like 200 people watched this video from 4 years ago. So it's at all hours of the day, and that's a little intimidating. I've never been intimidated by numbers. I'm more intimidated by this is forever. All this content is out there forever.
Yeah.
And at any given time, someone is listening to me talk. It's a little weird.
Well, speaking of people listening to you talk, the movie studios are listening or trolling or using algorithms to spot when you use clips in your movie reviews. So let's talk about that for a second, because when we actually did some work together a year ago when you had a movie review that was taken down by Lionsgate. And so for the audience that doesn't know, explain what happens when you put something up and you get a copyright strike. And then I'll get to do some lawyer stuff and we'll explain some of the rules there. But what's it like in your experience? How does it happen?
It's miserable. It's like so devastating. It was a movie review I did about a movie called LOL with Miley Cyrus. And I was very proud of this particular movie review. Some of them I'm like, oh, this one was okay. But I really liked this video. We put a lot of work into it. We uploaded it and it was okay for a few days. And I think day 4 or 5, YouTube sends an email that says your video received a copyright claim. And in the beginning, it's not a strike. There's a difference between a claim and a strike. Right. A claim is just basically saying they recognize their clips and they're going to take the ad revenue from this video. But it gives me the option to dispute it. So I disputed it. I think that might be, it wasn't my first dispute, but I think that was the first time I asked for your help with the wording. And I was so confident. I was like, man, he worded this so good. There's no way they can reject this dispute. And they have 7 days or 30 days or something to reject it, which they did. And then I was like, crap. Well, then you have the option to appeal. So I appealed it. And usually 80% of the time, if you go so far as to appeal it, I don't know what happens on the other side, but it looks to me like that's when an actual human will step in and read it. And a lot of times they let it go, but they rejected my appeal and I got a notice that said your video will be taken down in 3 days and you will receive a copyright strike unless you, I don't remember the word, it was like cancel your appeal. And I thought about it long and hard because I was like, I didn't want to give in, you know?
Right.
Especially after you verified for me that what I was doing was okay.
Right.
But I was like, I didn't think there was any other option, so I canceled the strike, or I canceled the appeal to avoid the strike.
And so explain the copyright strike, because you only get so many strikes, and then your channel goes away forever, right?
Yeah, you get 3 copyright strikes. I've never heard of it actually happening to anybody.
Right.
Sometimes I see people on Twitter saying my channel got taken down, but I don't know if it means it's gone forever.
Sure.
It seems like the wording is...
But for your business, that would be devastating.
Yeah, it would be detrimental.
Yeah, for sure. And so what we're talking about here is the concept of fair use in the copyright law. And you got pretty knowledgeable about this in our conversations. But you know, the way it works is that while you're using clips from the Miley Cyrus movie, the LOL, and you're taking some clips, and you're in your video, you're commenting on it. You're reviewing the movie, but you're also skewering it and making funny and putting yourself in and doing different things. It's not the old Siskel and Ebert version of a review, but it's still the same thing. It is commentary on copyrighted works, and you're only using, if you have a 15, 20-minute video that's yours, you might be using 3 to 5 minutes total time of clips, maybe, not even that much sometimes.
Probably. They're usually like 4 to 5 seconds at a time.
Yeah, exactly. And so in this is an area of law where fair use is part of the Copyright Act. It's built into the statute, and the concept is that there are certain times when you use those clips without permission. They are copyrighted by Lionsgate or whatever the studio is, and normally, if you take someone else's copyrighted material and you use it without their permission, that's copyright infringement. And that's what YouTube is set to do. You know, hey, We have our notice and takedown provisions under the DMCA. You see somebody infringing your work, you give us notice and it comes down.
Yeah.
Or it diverts the revenue, whatever it is. But diverting the revenue doesn't really matter to the average person who's just having fun. But for your business, diverting the revenue is huge. It's essentially the same as closing your doors.
I always write that in the, when you submit an appeal at the end, it says, is there anything else you want to say? And I usually plead with the claimant. I'm like, these movie reviews are my livelihood.
Right.
It's not going to benefit your studio to take it down. Right. It will only hurt mine.
Right.
And sometimes...
Well, and that's one of the things in the fair use concept, because even something that would otherwise be infringement is okay, is permissible, is actually fully legal and non-infringement if it fits in the concept of fair use. And there's multiple factors, and at other times on this podcast I'll talked about, and will again, I'm sure, fair use comes up all the time. But one area that it's not in dispute is movie reviews. Gotcha. It is literally in the language of the fair use, one of the things such as commentary.
Or criticism.
It is criticism. It is literally built into the First Amendment of the Constitution. And therefore, if a studio says a movie review has infringing content, that's a false statement. That's not a close call. It's simply false.
I was so relieved when you told me that.
Well, and so what we're learning more and more is that there are mechanisms, I think, in place, and you and I have talked about this, to make you better armed if that happens again, including claims under, and now I'll get a little lawyer, Section 512F of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act.
That's so cool writing. Section 107 of the Copyright Act.
Right. But it's there, and I think you're right. An algorithm isn't, they don't care about that. Right. So you need to almost get to that appeal right away. And but when a studio or when anybody says what is essentially a false statement, a misrepresentation. So their statement is, this content is infringing. If this content is a movie review, it is not infringing. That's not close. That's not debatable. So if they say it's infringing, that is a knowingly false statement. And there are cases that have decided that said that's the case. And you can recover damages that you've lost. You can recover attorney's fees. But it's not a YouTube issue. And this is the thing that I think it's hard for people to understand. YouTube and Facebook and any of those platforms, they have what's called a safe harbor under the DMCA that says as long as they have this notice and takedown process, then you can't sue YouTube for the presence of infringing material. But you can sue whoever put it up, or you can have the platform simply take it down. And that, as long as that process is there. So in the YouTubes and Facebooks of the world, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to weigh in on whether something is fair use because a judge has to decide that. Right. It's just like, you said take it down, you two fight it out.
And that's what kind of annoys me, is that the platform allows its creators that are making them money to get their livelihoods affected. And but I suppose it would be, I don't know anything about it, so it would probably be hard to step in every single time.
It'd literally be impossible. You think of the sheer volume of content. But the statute says if somebody's issuing these takedown notices wrongfully, then the people who are affected have a claim and can go after them directly. Gotcha. And so I think that's the process, and that's something that, when you're doing your commentary, when you're doing, and again, movie reviews are probably the easiest example to give. When I teach copyright law as an adjunct professor at St. Lucie Law School, and we talk about fair use, the example is a movie review. Because it's so well known.
I want other creators to know this much, because I did not. They had convinced me that I was committing some sort of crime until you validated. Right. I tried to double check it on my own, but I don't know anything. So I wish creators knew that they had more of a leg to stand on.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a message we would like to get out, right? Because if it's happening to you, it's happening to others as well. Yeah. And you're right, and it's probably something built into an algorithm at the studio, built into an algorithm there, and it happens automatically. So you've got to get to a person as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I know it is an algorithm because I am also on the other end of it. So YouTube has a little section in your studio called the rights manager, and I can go to my rights manager and see who has used my content. Sure. And I can see what percentage of my video they've used. And there's people where the percentage is 100%, but I don't. And it gives me, I can copyright claim them, and I would never. Because it's like, this is the internet. If I put something up there, there's a chance somebody is going to reuse it. And it just feels silly to like be copyright claiming people trying to get all their ad revenue, you know?
Well, but it's interesting you say that, and I can understand that. Now, and this is where we all, you know, because the lawyer in me right away says, well, of course you should do that. Let us help you set up a scheme, and it's another revenue stream. But the person in you says, I'm built a business, I have a successful business, but it's still sort of an organic YouTuber. And in the community, I don't want to get in the way of other people trying to be creative. Yeah. But if somebody's just being lazy, I mean, you go to all the work to make your videos.
I do get upset, and I have left comments before, you know, mean comments, if they straight up just re-upload my exact video. Right. But if someone uses it in a compilation or like stitches it or something, right, that's kind of what I'm saying by I wouldn't. There was one video I did recently where I made a stitch with a girl and I was pretending she was doing my makeup. And someone took the video, and anytime I was on camera, they replaced it with themselves. So they altered it a little bit. It was still annoying, but I was like, I'm not going to copyright claim this because he did alter it a little. He stole my idea, pass it off as his own, but that's the internet.
It is, but it's also copyright infringement. I mean, probably, and so, but that's one of those things where that's more of a judgment call, right? I mean, and that's, did he do enough? Is it transformative? And this is the part of fair use law where it's long cases get fought out to argue it, and they're very expensive. And so most people, you know, typically the advice is avoid having to defend that way. But in the movie review context, it's automatic, and I think that's an area where and again, that's not some other YouTuber getting. This is a movie studio just taking, and diverting ad revenue and things like that.
Well, one of the people who claim me, one of the companies, I should say, that claims me a lot on Facebook, I Googled them because I had never heard of this before. And I don't know if I can name drop or... Yeah, so sure. This company, Lasso Group, they claim a lot of my movie reviews on Facebook. And I Googled them, and it literally says on there, we are another source of revenue for you. Basically, so like their whole thing is copyright claiming people.
Yes, absolutely. There's a whole world about it. And if they're doing it wrongful, then they're a potential defendant too if you're making claims against them, because they're getting hired by studios or others in that for the sole purpose of watching for that, and they're taking a percentage of whatever they recover and all that. It's a whole industry.
And it affects the overall health of your page, which I didn't know was a thing.
Sure.
And the people who helped me run my Facebook page, they're like, all these copyright strikes are hurting your overall page, and it's causing Facebook to not push your content out.
Interesting.
So
which then itself has a dollar for dollar impact on your revenues.
Yeah. I took a huge nosedive in revenue on Facebook when I started getting claimed.
Yeah. So we're going to work on trying to get that fixed, right? Yes. So one more thing I want to get. So this has been fascinating. First of all, let me just say thank you. I could sit and talk to you for hours and learn through the entire process. But one of the things I like to do in this, and you're a perfect example here, is I like to ask people what's on their screen. And so part of the premise here is that these days we all have our screens all the time, right? They're in our hands, they're on our walls, we're working on them, we're surrounded by them. And so when I ask somebody what's on their screen, I get somebody wants to say what they're watching at the end of the day, somebody what they're working, what's stopping their thumb. I just think it's an interesting conversation. And I also make notes of shows I should go watch.
Oh, yeah.
So what's on your screen?
Well, it depends if my husband's in the room or not. If he's with me, we will watch comedy movies. We just watched Liar Liar, Bruce Almighty, anything from any comedy from that time when we were younger. And then when he goes to bed, I watch YouTube. I watch my YouTube creators that I like. So I like a lot of other commentary creators. And I'm a typical woman, and I watch gruesome true crime, forensic files. And I found a new YouTube channel called Explore With Us. And it's true crimes, and they have all the body cam footage and police interrogations.
Oh my gosh.
I can sit there for hours with that, even though it's depressing.
So that, and I think that's fascinating because I think as a YouTube creator, right, you're involved in putting content on there, but you're also a YouTube consumer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would choose YouTube over movies at this point.
Yeah. I had a guest on earlier this year who's a musician, and he talked about how YouTube has become part of his practice method. And so it's like, it used to in his mind think, oh, if I'm watching YouTube, I'm being lazy or I'm vegging or I'm doing whatever. And he said, now I realize I'm watching other musicians. I'm watching sometimes where YouTube just takes me, but there's something I see in a stage presence, something that appears to me that I'm not making a note of it, but I find later in a performance or in a practice, I'm using something there.
It's a lot of inspiration, and I've learned editing techniques without actually learning them, just seeing it happen.
Right.
And a lot of times other creators are much faster than me at getting the latest topic out. So I'll be like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about, So there's a lot you can, and that's why they call it the University of YouTube, because there's also anything I ever need to learn, I go to YouTube.
Right. Yeah, same for me if I have to change a faucet in the sink. That's YouTube helps.
Any new editing technique,
I
go to YouTube.
So last question for you. What's next? Like, how do you find, you were in makeup and the movie reviews are certainly always a source, but is there some trend or something that you're looking forward to stay fresh?
On YouTube or just like in life?
When you're in, well, both. Actually, it's a really good, both. And we talked earlier about possibly acting, but as you think of, if you're going to be in the business of putting content out full time, how do you come up with the next idea?
Well, I don't necessarily have to come up with the next idea because I have this whole other passion, which is music. And I think my next step, in addition to YouTube, I don't know if I could ever really give it up. It would have to get pretty bad. So I would like to stick with this career, stick it out with my channel until I become irrelevant. But I want to also put out music.
So you record your own music and oh, cool.
I sing, and my husband's a serious musician, and we have a recording studio at the house. And it's something my viewers have been asking for a long time. And it was another one of those things like I dreamed of as a kid, but you don't think anyone could ever actually do it. And now the YouTube has really made me realize the possibilities are endless.
You can do anything.
Yeah. So I want to pursue that, I think.
Fantastic. Well, that'll be the next time we visit, when you're dropping your first album.
Or because I covered a song and got copyright claimed.
Well, we can talk about that. As my musicianship is playing in dad band, classic rock cover band, so all we do is cover stuff. And you do. In fact, I'll put a plug, September 16th at Humphreys here in St. Louis. Come check out 81.
Oh,
yeah, I'll shamelessly promote that for sure and let you put it out there to your 1 million followers. Jaime, this has been great. Thank you.
Pleasure's on this side of the table.
Thank you very much. This is awesome. And thanks, guys, for somebody's arms are really tired holding that boom mic, but he looks really strong. So this is fantastic. Folks, if you've enjoyed this, you've got to check out Jaime. Jaime, full name of your title.
Jaime French, like French fry, and spell my first name right. Jaime.
Jaime French. All right. And we're going to put that all over. Folks, if you've enjoyed this and you want to see more Screen Lawyer content, please like and subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, check us out at thescreenlawyer.com. And if you're getting this on your audio podcasts, find us, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We drop every other Wednesday here at the Screen Lawyer Podcast, and hopefully a lot more good stuff to come. Jaime, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
We did it.
All right, we're out.